Have you ever wondered why the Pokedex has some of the craziest entries? If the Pokedex was created by Professor Oak, then the obvious answer must be that Oak wrote them down randomly, right? He just made up a bunch of stuff half the time. What man would be able to experience 800 plus Pokemon and not only write the entries of said Pokemon, but witness what he was going to write down for each and every Pokemon? Well, today, we will be exploring some of the most bone-chilling Pokedex entries and why these Pokedex entries even exist in a quote-unquote kids game. Can I just start off by saying that a man claiming to be a professor probably should not be confused about your gender, or your name, or his own grandson's name, all in the same conversation from two kids from the same town he's lived in for 10 years with the kids? Do you see where I'm going with this? So Oak is not that reliable. But what if I told you that those creepy Pokedex entries might not actually be an exaggeration? What if I told you they are truer than any of us know? Let's just take into account that some of these Dex entries are definitely exaggerated. For example, the Fire-type Pokemon whom would melt the entire world. Yeah, okay, Professor Oak, he's a Pokemon professor, not a climate change professor. So he's not exactly good with numbers, people. But aside from those silly entries, I'm going to show you how almost every dark Pokedex entry is true, and witnessed by Professor Oak himself. Let's look at a few from Generation 1 first, beginning with Ghastly. The Pokedex states that Ghastly is made of a thin gas-like substance that induces fainting if you get enshrouded in it. Professor Oak either would have had to witness this firsthand or hear about this through folklore and tales from other people, probably people from Lavender Town. But there is a third possibility that Professor Oak just tested the theory for himself. As a researcher, Oak likely came into contact with many tales and had to test them himself to ensure that they were either true or false, which would create a situation where Professor Oak probably had battled Ghastly himself until the Ghastly caused his Pokemon to faint by enshrouding it. So let's take a look at another Pokedex entry. Haunter. By licking, it saps the victim's life. It causes shaking that won't stop until the victim's demise. Now, things are getting extremely spooky up in here. In order for the professor to verify this one, he would have had to capture a Haunter and have it lick a Pokemon to death. Yeah, not only creepy, but extremely gross. But anything in the name of science, right? Even if Oak didn't firsthand find the knowledge of these Pokemon himself, he would investigate what people said about these Pokemon. Case in point, Shedinja. The Pokedex states that it is believed that this Pokemon will steal the spirit of anyone peering into its hollow body from its back. Do you think somebody who already knew about a bunch of legends and the Pokemon world itself would risk his own spirit being taken by a Pokemon? Oak likely grabbed someone and forced them to look inside the Pokemon's back to see if they would be killed doing so. And again, just for science, right? Anything for science. Let's cross some canons here for a bit. We know that in the Pokemon movie where Professor Oak had met Celebi, we also know that he time traveled with the same Celebi. In a previous theory, I had explained how Professor Oak used Celebi to time travel to meet all of the Pokemon and discover them all, creating the Pokedex with all of his notes of said Pokemon. But because he was able to use Celebi to time travel, he was also able to test all these folklore tales for these Pokemon. And he was able to capture them and see for himself. So whether or not he actually captured every single Pokemon, he at least was able to test the legends that were spoken about these Pokemon. If someone was killed, Oak would just reverse time. If Oak was hurt, he would again just go back. And he rinsed and repeated this process until he saw every single Pokemon and was able to write down their Pokedex entries. Somehow, in this process, he began to lose his mind and his humanity, testing these Pokedex entries against people to see if they were true or not. Take, for example, Spiritomb. It was formed by uniting 108 spirits. It has been bound to an odd keystone to keep it from doing mischief. Now, Oak could have just written this down from lore written in a library or something, or he could have time traveled to that event and witnessed it firsthand. How could Oak have Pokedex entries for Pokemon like Giratina, a Pokemon that has little to no record of even existing in our world, due to it being banished to the Distortion Realm way early on, before even humanity was around? Pokemon like Mimikyu are also said to have killed the scholar who saw its true form. If he was dead, how could someone have known that he died from looking at Mimikyu's true form? Because it was Oak himself who was working with the scholar, and it was Oak who wanted the scholar to see that Pokemon's true form for his new Pokedex.
Welcome back.
Finally, let's put the cherry on top of this theory. Yveltal is said to have destroyed the world in its Pokedex entry. When its life comes to an end, it absorbs all of the life energy of every living thing and turns into a cocoon once more. Oak was able to time travel and witness this event firsthand by having Yveltal do this and test it to see what the legends had stated and to see if they were actually true. That's why Yveltal has this Pokedex entry. And then over time, through the time travel, the effects of him aging, him slowly losing his mind, slowly beginning to forget, and then, poof, one day, all he knew was the Kanto Pokemon, where he ended up at, pursuing the one rarest Pokemon, Mew, a Pokemon that people didn't even think existed, a Pokemon that could turn invisible, a very difficult Pokemon to find. Professor Oak might seem like a nice old man, just simply researching Pokemon, but you don't know what he did to his test subjects. The numerous experiments he performed, the amount of people killed, the amount of pain inflicted. Oak is the real monster, not these Pokemon. But the scariest part about all of this, if this is all true, then those Pokedex entries are also true. And Oak tested them all.